Hello and welcome to Off the Fence Stories. This is a very special mini-series of the Off the Fence podcast where every Friday for the next few weeks, we're going to bring you stories of people who have gone through a divorce and not only survived, but have gone on to thrive afterwards. Real people, real stories, and hopefully real inspiration. If you enjoy this series, please do me a big favor and let me know. This is honestly a bit of an experiment, and if enough people love it, we'll keep doing it. But in order to know whether you want more stories, you've got to let us know what you think. So leave a comment wherever you're watching or listening. And now, let's get to our story. Enjoy. With me today, I have the immense pleasure of speaking with Jenny Townsend. And Jenny is a keynote speaker, podcaster, Amazon best-selling author, and thriving businesswoman focused on inspiring individuals to achieve balance in both their professional lives and their marriages. Having experienced and triumphed over her own marital challenges, Jenny penned the book Stroke It as a means of providing support to others facing similar struggles. Jenny is also the proud proprietor of Music Compound, a renowned music academy that's garnered accolades such as Best Woman-Owned Business and Small Business of the Year. In recognition for her outstanding achievements, Jenny was honored with the Entrepreneur of the Year award in 2019. Now happily married, Jenny takes pleasure in traveling, savoring delectable cuisine, and cherishing quality time spent with her loved ones. Jenny, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'm excited to be here with your listeners today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Yeah, I am so excited for our conversation because you have a different way of approaching the world and looking at life and marriage, and I can't wait for you to share it. And I want to talk about your book, the title of which is Stroke It, which is intriguing, and I want to get into what that means to you. But first, let's start with your backstory, especially as it relates to your marriage. Tell me a little bit, if you can, about your business and your marriage, and share your journey with the listeners.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. So I'll start with in 2009. 2009, I was just graduating college. It was later in my 20s. It was after the real estate market had crashed and I had to go back to college to get my bachelor's. I only had an associate's degree. And it was during that time that I was able to create a business plan as my final semester project in order to get my degree. And that was a music school for children with an interest in playing musical instruments, connecting with individuals. And so I graduated, and around that time, I met my now husband back in 2009. And I told him, yes, one day I'm going to start this music school. And so we continued dating, got married. And then in 2015, I quit my corporate job to work on the funding to launch my dream business. Launched it in 2016, super excited, happily married, and I was ready to take on the world. About 2 years into that business, which is my music school, I became faced with depletion, exhaustion, not being appreciated, fighting with team members. And I met with a mentor, and he's like, "You really need to take a sabbatical." And I was like, "You want me to walk out of my business? What?" And so really, really scary time. I had just hired an individual that October who was 18 years of age. And I said, "Okay, Kaylee, it's up to you. Good luck. You've got the reins of the company. I'll see you in January." And she looked at me like, "What?" So she was 18, and then a little assistant we had was 16 at the time, and I left. And it was during that time that I really saw the writing on the wall. I'd always speculated that something was going on with my husband and with a coworker of his, but I could never put my finger on it. I never really wanted to see what was happening because I was so in love with my company. It was providing smiles and it was impacting me. I was seeing all these dreams turn into reality and just, oh, all the smiles and just, it was so beautiful. But I quickly realized that my home life was not so much. So spent some time at home by myself. And in February of 2018 is when I actually discovered that my worst nightmare was coming true. And my husband was, in fact, having an affair with a coworker. And that was in 2018. And then that started the recovery from that discovery. And that is when I started journaling. And then when I asked my husband why and what happened and all the things, it was she stroked him. So that is what inspired the book and the work that I'm doing today. She stroked him emotionally, mentally, and physically. And basically, I've taken that concept and applied it to all areas of my life. And I know we're going to kind of dive into the thought process and how we got here, but to let you know, we are celebrating 12 years of marriage in May, and our marriage is better than it's ever been. And it took a lot of work, self-reflection, and it's been an entire journey that I'm looking forward to sharing with all of your listeners today. And a lot of people that had been through it said, if you can make it through this, that'll be the best decision. And when you're faced with finding out the person that you're in love with and you're married to has betrayed you and has involved somebody else in your marriage, it's really hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel. So, but yeah, and during that time, I thought I was going to have to give up my business or give up my marriage. And I today have the best of both worlds. Both of those are thriving and super successful, and both making me very, very happy.
That is an amazing story, and thank you for sharing it. Because I talk to so many people who their marriage, there is a third person in their marriage. Somebody is having an affair, and I'll be honest with you, most of those stories don't have a happy ending. And what fascinates me about you is because you are a strong, successful businesswoman. You built this thriving company that was your baby. And you have now also built at the same, alongside of that, a thriving marriage. So it's entirely possible. And it's also possible to come back from an affair, but that is not an easy journey. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about how did you do it? How did you get over? I mean, I can only imagine the hurt and the pain and the disappointment with the whole thing. How did you deal with that?
So, first and foremost, I had to take ownership of my role, and my husband had to do the same. So, it was very clear to me and to other people that we were close to that things were happening with outside of my marriage that I wasn't either aware of or I didn't have control of. And I remember my mom calling me and saying, you really need to take care of your man. And my aunt would call me and say, that doesn't seem normal. And they were just questioning me and they were giving me advice versus saying, hey, I think your husband's cheating on you. Like they would not say that. And I was so caught up in my own world. I was being so fulfilled by my business. I mean, it was like a baby. It was a dream come true for me. I had been dreaming of opening this music school since 2009. I have worked really hard as far as developing the plan, launching the business. And I was so fulfilled that I really wasn't like feeling the absence of my marriage or my husband. I was so focused on that company and the success of it. And I, as an entrepreneur, developed a 1-3-5. Where do I want to be in 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years? And what's that success going to look like? And how is my life going to look? And I really just leaned into that 110% and I gave it all. And I'm glad that I did because if I didn't, my company wouldn't be where it is today. I mean, it could be similar, it would just be different. But at the same time, like the company is successful because of those first few years that I put everything into it. So when I discovered, or when I actually like saw the writing on the wall and came focused and like in tune with it, um, it wasn't like I was surprised by it because there had been so many signs, and we had been fighting about this young individual for over 2 years in our marriage. I mean, the first incident that this happened was in 2015, actually before I started my company. And so it was like, oh, finally the proof is there. But it hit me so hard because it was like, oh my God, I was right all along. And we had spent so much time fighting, and he had been denying and making me think I was crazy and all the things that someone that is cheating on someone would make you feel like I'm the one that's delusional. And come to find out, I was right all along. So in that moment, I became very angry. I was really, really angry at him. I was really angry with her, and I was really angry with myself because I didn't fight hard enough for my marriage. I allowed the lies to be told to me. I just dismissed all the warning signs. And quite frankly, I just let him keep getting away with it. And so at that point, there was a lot of anger. And so we decided separate. Right now, let's just separate because that's what you do, I guess. And so during that time frame, I took a lot of time to work on myself. Who am I? Who am I without my husband? Who am I without my company? Who do I want to be? What do I like to do? Do I have any hobbies? Do I like to read? Do I like to travel? And when it came down to it, I didn't really have anything other than my company. And that's when I was like, okay, that needs to be put on hold for a minute, and I need to really take some time for myself. So I started seeking counseling. I did singing bowl classes. I went and did acupuncture. And through that process, I was able to discover who I was as a woman. And I had realized I was in a lot of masculine energy. I was the boss. I was very cold. I was very business. I was just there was not much of a relationship with myself, much less my husband as well. And so during that track and that recovery state, I started journaling. And the journaling is really what helped me. Prior to journaling, I was really, really sick because when you go through all these emotions, you store them. And so I stored everything in my shoulders where I couldn't even move my arm at a point of time. And I was seeking doctors, chiropractic, and then my acupuncturist was like, your body isn't going to heal until we heal your mind and your heart. And that's where I went on a journey of doing acupuncture, kinesiology, and a couple other things and really started journaling. And the journaling is really what helped process the emotions. I got out things. I was able to express myself without saying anything to anyone. And I would say the journaling was a really pivotal point for me. And that's where really what led to the book and the podcast and all the other things, which I turned this horrible story into something super beautiful and sweet. But first of all, like going back to your original question was taking ownership. How was I showing up in my marriage? How was I showing up for me? I had to accept the facts. I had to accept, like, this is what happened. When this happens to you, you're like, I want to know where, when did it happen? All of the details. And my therapist said, Jenny, it happened. It happened once. It could have happened 100 times. But at the end of the day, your husband broke the vow. He cheated on you. He involved another person in your marriage. This happened. It doesn't matter all the details. Just focus on the fact that it happened and let's work on that. And so I had to work through that. I had to accept my husband's apology, which is super hard to do as well.
Let me stop you there because that's a place where a lot of women, or it's not just women, but the person who was the cheated on spouse, not the cheater, but the cheated on. And it's so hard to accept that apology because you can't do it genuinely unless you're willing to let go of your anger. And you said you had a lot of anger against your husband. How did you get to the point where you could authentically put that aside and say, no, I don't want to be in that angry space anymore?
So this all went down February of 2018. I don't believe that I accepted the apology until probably October of November of that year. Um, that's when I said, okay, let's try to make it work. And that's where we kind of like moved back in together and all those things. And when I accepted the apology, I was still very much triggered and I would lash out and I would take digs and I would always bring up the other person. So as much as I accepted the apology to like figure out how to move forward, I don't know if I genuinely completely did until it was like mid 2019. And that's when I decided to get a place by myself and really go and work on the future. And I had to make a decision because I didn't want to enter 2020 still on the fence. I really wanted to make a decision with my marriage and with myself. Was I in or was I out? And that was December of 2019. And that's when I came home and I said, honey, I love you. I want to be married to you. I want to forgive you. And I think that's when really I was able to start moving forward. And my husband and I were both able to be in tandem and work together to start rebuilding the marriage. So I would say it took about a year, year and a half to really get to that mindset.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing for the listeners to understand is that it's not like somebody comes in and waves a magic wand and all of a sudden, poof, all the pain, all the hurt, all the anger just goes away. But at the same time, for the people who try to just push it aside and cover it up and, oh, no, I'm fine, like that doesn't work either. And so it sounds like you took a lot of steps and did a lot of things to work on both yourself and the marriage. But I'm curious, during this time, well, first of all, you said you separated. How long were you separated?
So we were separated probably for like 3 months, maybe 4 months not living together. So we
Okay.
basically split our house. So 1 week he would live there, 1 week I would live there. We did that for probably like 6 or 8 weeks because he would go to his friend's house and live there, or he would go and live at his parents' house. And then I would go and stay at my aunt's house, or I would go and stay at my mom's house. And then after that, I was like, I need to just move out. I can't keep doing this because so many emotions, and you're back in the house. And then you're like, was someone here when I wasn't here? Or,
Yeah.
just so many things. And that's literally, I had to move. So I moved in with my aunt for about 3 months. And I ended up going home in January of 2019 because my aunt had company coming into town and she needed her guest room. And so I went home for just gonna be for a weekend. And he was like, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm staying. This is a time where we can talk and bond and kind of figure out where we're going to go in 2018. And so I came home and we spent a lot of time talking. But I was only going to come home if he signed off on my business. And I was like, I'll allow you to stay if you sign off on my business and don't take 50% of it. And I had him sign some other documents as well. And because we never did like a prenup, and then it was like I never did a
Mhm.
postnup. And then it was like, I'm only gonna, and my business meant the world to me. Like that was the priority. And so I wanted to protect that asset as much as possible. And so I came home and then we started talking, and then we still weren't really going to get back together. And then we listed our house, and then we sold our house and mid 2019. And when we sold our house, we still weren't really ready to give up on our marriage. So we're like, okay, let's move downtown to a one-bedroom apartment where we can afford the rent if one of us moves out. And moving to a one-bedroom apartment was almost like we got to date. We were kind of on vacation. We went out to dinner. We went to the pool. There wasn't a yard to mess with. There wasn't the trash to have to fight over. There wasn't like, did you clean this area? And really, I think that was a really pivotal point in our marriage was mid 2019, where we could just really get back to who we were. And we both had committed to each other. I had a lot of balance in my life. I wasn't working as much. And I think that's kind of like where the pivotal point was of like trying to rebuild. But still, at the end of 2019, I was like, am I really ready to forgive? Because you really want to hold on to that because you really want to
Oh,
be
yeah.
angry. And I don't know why you want to hold on to it, but it's like you want to hold this over them because they caused you so much pain and they should have to pay for it. And like, there's no sweeping this under the rug, mister. But if you want to make it work and you want to be able to move forward, you can't have that mentality.
Yeah, not at all. But I'm curious too, because this is your side of this. I'm sure he has a side as well. But at some point, he had to make a decision that he was going to end the relationship with the affair partner. How did that fit into this whole scenario?
Yeah, so well, first of all, they worked together. So that was a dynamic that had to change immediately. And so the discovery happened in February. And he had to go back to work with her. And that was really hard for me because I'm like, I'm basically sending you back to the woman that broke our marriage up. And then he had to work with her every day. And then at this point, I'm really angry. So something had happened with some correspondence with an email or something that I was like, you have to quit your job. And at this point, I wasn't even paying myself yet. I was just still, living off of him while my company was trying to thrive in this moment. So he basically had to quit his job, had to give up his income, had to give up our insurance. And then I had to start paying myself. And then I had to take over all the house bills and I had to take over everything. That was another like, ugh, like, wait a minute, you fucked or screwed this up. And now I have to pay the price, like financially, and in addition to emotionally and mentally. And like, that was a really hard pill to swallow. However, I was able to do it because at the end of the day, we both played a part. We both created this mess. We both created this dismantle of our marriage, and we both wanted to make it work. But him having to quit his job was super, super hard. And to my knowledge, it just ended. And, she was also very upset with him because she thought he was going to leave me and that they were going to get married and all these things. So he broke both of our hearts. And so that was a really big struggle for him. And he felt really bad for her. He felt really bad for me. I mean, he had a lot of depression. He had a big drinking problem. At one point, I thought he was going to kill himself. And I mean, like, he just went down a rabbit hole. And his parents are still married and they're still alive and they're very much aware of what's happening. So he was just such a disappointment to so many people. But that was his own issues, and he had to deal with that. I had to deal with me. He had to deal with himself. So we had to like really be on our own recovery tracks, which was very different because we were on different sides of this fence. And so it's a horrible journey and just it was a lot of struggles. So grateful that we were able to make it through it. Because I think if we would have just thrown in the towel, I don't know if we ever would have fully recovered and be able to forgive ourselves, much less the other person, and been able to ever really be happy. I think there would have been a lot of resentment and a lot of just anger, and a lot of that would have lingered still within us.
Yeah, and what you're saying is so important because I think it really is the key to recovery is that you were each willing to own your own part of in the demise of your marriage up to that point, right? And it's so easy when you're the person that was cheated on to go, it is not, what do you mean? My responsibility? My fault? What are you talking about? You're the one who blah, 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 right? So, what was it that helped open you up to the possibility that you played a role in this as well?
Well, I always knew that I was contributing to it. I mean, the fact that my company was my world and my everything, and I told everybody that, you start a company and you're like, I'm gonna risk it all. Like, I had nothing to lose. Well, I thought I had nothing to lose. I was thinking I have nothing to lose financially because I didn't really have anything when I was starting my company. But I didn't realize that my marriage was on the line. When we talked about me quitting my job and starting my company, there was a well thought out plan, and this was like where we were going to be. Unfortunately, because of my husband's needs and his love languages and upbringing, he needed more than I thought he needed. And I wasn't able to give him everything that he needed. And so what he had to do was replace that and find that. And what I'm talking is about he requires a lot of quality time. He requires a lot of personal touch. He just requires a lot of love and affection. And that is because of his upbringing. He had very loving, affectionate parents, and his mom was a teacher. So she was very much reading him bedtime stories and always touching him and rubbing him and all these things. That is not how I was brought up. I was like, you have a roof over your head and we're feeding you. There's your love, chica. So, like, but my parents loved me. They care. I mean, they did everything for me. I'm so grateful for my parents, and I love my parents. My parents loved me, but very different ways of showing love. So there was so many things that I just didn't know very early on in our marriage that I know now. And understanding those love languages and how he feels loved and appreciated. Like I would literally get up every morning, make him a smoothie for his drive, an hour commute. I would pack him a lunch. I would pack him snacks, love notes, everything. Like literally send him out the door. There you go, thinking that that was love. No. What he would have rather had was me working out in the gym with him, spending quality time with him. That time that I was making all these things for him, he would have not wanted that and rather have that quality time with me. We didn't have those conversations. There were so many conversations we didn't have. He didn't voice his needs. And to this day, I'm like, I don't know why you didn't tell me all of this. So whether he didn't trust me or he didn't feel confident in himself to say that, he did always say, well, I didn't want to take you from your dream and I didn't want to distract you. But at the end of the day, if you don't tell me or your partner what you need, they don't know. We cannot read their minds. And I'm a very masculine woman. Like I'm very much like boss and like business and like I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to come up and be like, how can I make you happy? Like, I am now doing that. So there's just so many things that we've learned through this recovery stage. And, we didn't really understand each other as human beings early on in our marriage.
How did you get to that point where you were able to have the conversations? Because what you're describing is something that a lot of people experience. They they don't know how to have the conversation. So they think they're having the conversation, but it's so surface level that they're really not having the conversation, right? So was it couples counseling? Was it, some individual therapy? Was it something else that the two of you just sat down? How did you get to the point where you could really talk to each other about the things that you cared about and mattered to you?
We had to make our marriage a priority. We had to make each other a priority, and we had to trust, and we had to create time and space for our marriage. And I think this happens with a lot of people, you're on the hamster wheel, you're working, you're having kids, you're schlepping them, you're doing laundry, you're cleaning the kitchen, and you never create the time or the space to have those conversations. Those conversations are usually happening when you're mad, you're exhausted, you're angry, and you're like, I'm not happy. You don't do this, and you don't take care of me, or you don't love me. And like, it's in that moment of anger, really. It's not in a safe space where you're like, I feel that I would like to spend more time with you, or I would love when we're on the couch together for us not to be on our phones and for us to hold hands. My husband says to me now, I feel really distant from you. And that's because I'm working too much or I'm doing things. And so he trusts me and he knows that I'm going to listen and I'm going to act on his request. So when he says I'm distant, I'm like, oop, okay, what can I cancel from my calendar? How can I spend more time at home? I have had to restructure my calendar where it's like, okay, I get 2 nights out a week. And that means I can go hang out with my friends, I can go to a business function, or I can go to a work like concert or something else like that. 2 nights a week where I'm not at home. It doesn't matter what time I get home, I can go do my thing. And there may be like a third one as well. But I'm making sure I'm home more often and more than I am out and about with other people. And I think the book, The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman, was super impactful because we were able to understand each other's love languages and how to cater to that. So his love language, going back, it was quality time. So once again, he didn't care about the acts of service and the gifts. He wanted that quality time in the gym together. When I'm on the couch, don't be scrolling on social, posting for the company. Be in tune, be present. When we're at home having a conversation, I'm listening. I'm literally looking at him. I'm not doing anything else, and I'm listening to the words that are coming out of his mouth and actually having conversation. Before, I never thought my husband talked. I just thought, oh, he doesn't talk. Oh my God, he does not stop talking now. He has so much to say. And a lot of that is because I was so busy talking. It was all about me and all the thing going on and all that stuff. And, I'm not married to myself. I had to create space for my husband and for our relationship. And I think that was a huge game changer. And we get married because we want to be with someone and we value them and we love them and we want to be a good partner and we, want them to support us and we want to support them. But I think sometimes we just get lost based on the season of life that we're in or the other things that are going on in our life. So I would encourage anyone to create the space, create the time on your calendars for connection. We schedule sex dates. We have Freaky Friday. So Thursday, you better shower the night before, do the shaving, do what you need to do because there's no excuses for saying no the next morning. If Freaky Friday doesn't happen on Friday, then it will happen Saturday morning. So creating that time for intimacy has been super impactful because weeks will go by and you'll be like, when was the last time we were intimate? And so that is a huge part of the connection for us. Not that it's all about intimacy, but that intimacy does create a really great connection with your partner. And if you
Of
are serving that
course.
partner, they're not going to go looking for that elsewhere.
But let me ask you, because all right, so the what people usually say in response to scheduling a sex date is that is so unromantic. That's how can you that doesn't that just take all the fun out of it?
For us, it does not. So, a lot of times people say, you'll have a partner that maybe wants to, and they're like, oh, they're finessing you or whatever. But let's just say one of the reasons you'll say no is maybe you're not showered or you're not shaved or you're not ready or, you're not in that mindset or you're busy doing the dishes or you're busy doing homework with the kids. So the timing is not right. It's just like the timing's never going to be right for you to necessarily be alone, be shaved, be cleaned, be ready, and feel sexual. So we just know. So whoever wakes up that next morning, they're coming over, they're starting to snuggle. And it doesn't mean like we're going straight into having sex. I mean, there's snuggle time, there's kisses, what are you grateful for? Oh, I love you. And then it kind of goes from there. And sometimes we may go take a walk together and then come back and have breakfast and then we'll go hang out together. Or it may be, you know what? Just the snuggle time and holding each other is intimacy enough. We don't actually have to have sex. So, once again, you're just creating that time for connection and you're being very mindful and intentional with your time together. And, a lot of times a man's, and for me, it's personal touch too, but it's about personal touch. And so that personal touch really could just be rubbing their arms, giving them a massage. My husband loves when I rub my fingers through his hair. That kind of touch is simply just, they just want to feel loved and needed. Like the fact that men don't need us to snuggle with them or to give them affection. I don't know who made that up. A lot of them need that. And I'm sure many of you are shaking your heads. Yes, my husband's very needy. I know what you're saying. But I think we sometimes just dismiss that need that they have because they're a man.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I want to close what's still an open loop in my mind. So
Okay.
I don't know, maybe somebody else listening is having the same question. But okay, so you're at the point where your husband, you say you got to quit your job because you're still with this or you're still around the person, right? So he does. He quits his job. He now has no income. All the financial burden fell 100% on you, at least for some point in time. How did that shift? How did he react? Did he get, I mean, at some point he must have gotten another job. What happened?
So that's really hard for a man, first of all, to not have a
Yep.
job and not to have income. And so that was a really hit to his ego. But in the day, he had no choice. If he wanted to make his marriage work with me, he had to make some serious changes. And that meant quitting his job, cutting all ties with her. And I'm really fortunate. I will say this. I don't know it's because of her where she's from or her ethnicity, but there was no contact. And I mean, maybe they connected through social, but like numbers were blocked. There's tons of apps. So it could have been happening, but I truly don't think it was. Um, all communication was ended. And if it did linger, I wasn't aware of it, but it didn't discourage us from making our marriage work again. And I would say I'm really fortunate about that. And I'm really grateful that she just cut the ties, he cut the ties, and there was no one lingering because that's not always the case. People will reach out, they'll stalk, they'll like show up at places they know you're at because they saw your location on social. And so I would say that my situation is very different than a lot of other people. So he, had to cut those ties. And then, yeah, he had to spend time looking for a job for a period of time. So that was really hard on him. And that was hard on me too. But in the day, like, if we want to make this work, we have to make changes. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's what we had to do. And I mean, it ended up working out for us. I don't think it always works out for someone because I could have been like, okay, you have no job, you're out of the house, and you would have had nowhere to live and no income. I didn't do that though. Does that
Well,
answer your question or am I still?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
no, that does. So that, I mean, because at some point then he does get another job, right?
Hmm.
And then he was able to even out the financial responsibilities. But you're 100% right. A lot of times, we look at it, as the woman who has been cheated on, you look at this as from the perspective, from our own perspective, and we don't think about the fact that it's also hard for the person who was cheating to end the affair as well. And sometimes it's the whole fatal attraction story, like the woman just doesn't go away, right? And that she becomes the stalker or the what have you. So the fact that things were able to be cut cleanly is really amazing and encouraging. But what I want people to hear is that it's possible, right? Everybody, because when you're asked whether you're the man, the woman, that it doesn't matter. When you're asked to do something that you don't want to do, something that's hard, something that's not fun, your initial reaction for a lot of people is, well, I can't. I can't. And you're proof that yes, you can.
Yes, and I do want to add that I think if the situation was different, let's just say that I was a stay-home mom and I was taking care of the kids and I didn't have a business or I hadn't been in the workplace for a very, very long time and my husband cheated with a coworker, I think that that point that would have been very difficult for him to quit his job on the spot. That man would have to get another job because I don't believe that if I was a stay-home mom, I would be able to go back to work, who's going to take care of the kids? And then I haven't been in the workplace, so who's going to hire me? That would have been a really big struggle. But at the end of the day, I think if the man made the mistake within that workplace, he would have to make a move, and he would have to make a move fast to take another job, whether he liked the other company, he wanted to make the move or not. I think at the end of the day, he would have to take ownership of his decisions and make a change to the better of his family, and then they would be able to move on. We're really fortunate because we didn't have children. And I think when I speak with women, they're like, I think they feel so much pain for themselves, but they also feel pain for their children, even though their children don't know what the parent did. So there's like a whole nother dynamic as well. But I do believe, like, if you are going through this, first and foremost, focus on you. Don't place all the blame on the partner. Really take ownership of how you contributed. How did you get here? And it's going to take time to like really think about how many years this has been going on, or how many years were you unhappy, or how many years was your spouse unhappy that you just dismissed it, or you didn't care and you're like, oh, well, we're just in this marriage till the kids get out. And that's like the worst. It's like if you're going to be married, at least try to make it work while you're together, right? And make it a really great partnership and team, because your children are going to see the dysfunction and all of the hate between the two of you, and they're never going to want to get married, or they're going to think that that's normal for relationships, and you're going to set a really bad example for your children. So I think every situation is completely different. Once again, we didn't have children, so I had no reason to stay. We could have totally walked out. So really what kept us together was the fact that we could remember who we married, we loved each other, and we were willing to give our marriage another shot. So I always say we're in our second marriage, and our second marriage is way better than the first marriage.
Tell me about that. Tell me about what's different now, because now that you're on the other side of things, which is a place that most people don't think they can ever be, but you are, and you say your second marriage is your best marriage. So tell me about what's changed, what's different now from the way it used to be.
So my parents divorced the first time when I was in sixth grade. My mom had an affair and cheated on my father. And I came home from school. I got dropped off by the carpool, and my house was completely empty. My mom cleaned out our house while we were at school. My dad was at work, and I came home and found my dad in a rocking chair. And for the first time, I saw my father cry, and it was one of the saddest moments of my life. And he hated her. And he hated her because of, number one, how he hurt her. But how could she come and clean out our entire house to where her kids got home from school, that there was no furniture, there was no TV? And he held on to that hate for a very, very long time. Then my mom came back because my siblings were struggling, and they tried to make their marriage work again. And then she cheated on my dad again. And then she took the half of the business again that my dad had grown. So there was so much hate, and I can understand why he hated her, but so much hate throughout most of his life after that, where he could not be in the same place with her. Like, family functions were just unbearable for us kids. Like, the only time that our parents had been together in the same place was when we all got married. That was the only place that we'd all been together. And, my dad was late 60s when this had happened to me. And he said to me, "Don't let the anger get a hold of you." And I had seen him hold on to so much anger and never forgive my mom, and how miserable that made him feel. And even in his other marriages, he wasn't even fully in that marriage because he was still stuck in that other marriage. And that really was what I didn't want to be. I always knew I wanted to find forgiveness for my husband. I always knew that I wanted to be able to move forward from it. So having that mindset really was a guiding light to help me make decisions that would better my marriage and be able to help overcome it. And through the experiences and advice from other people, and that's one thing I want to say too, is make sure you talk to people that have been in the shoes before. Don't go to your friends that have never experienced this, because they're going to give you awful advice. They're going to tell you all the things, and they don't know until they're in that situation. Find people that have been, and you will find that a majority of the people that said, if you can make it through this, it'll be the best marriage possible. Lean into that. And other people will say, yeah, I threw in the towel, and I just didn't give it a shot. I wish I would have figured out a way to make it work, because we probably would have been really great together. So you have people telling you to do this, and like I said, it's really, really hard. But just leaning into that and staying true to who I was and who I wanted to become in the future vision of our marriage is really what I was holding on to, even though I had no guarantee that was going to happen. But because I spent so much time focusing on me and what made me happy and what fulfilled me, and I was able to heal myself and my heart and my mind to where I was able to give another shot and give myself fully to my husband again. And if it didn't work out, that was okay. At least I tried and I gave 110%. And if we did end up divorcing, I could sleep at night saying I gave it all and not live in regret and wonder and what if and all those things. So I think having that mindset really led me and my husband to where we are today, which our marriage, like I said earlier, is our priority, and we really value each other and we spend a lot of quality time together. So we have a morning routine where we get up, we snuggle a little bit if I'm not snoring and he ends up on the couch. And then we'll walk, work out together. We have breakfast most mornings together as well, and we make sure to have dinner together 5 nights a week, which that might seem crazy to people, but before I was never home. I was literally never home. So we make sure that we're spending a lot of quality time together, and when we're together, we're present. And we are so intimate, we're so in love. Like if you were to see some of the text messages that we send each other, you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, it's like your kids or you're dating." And it's like, "No, this is marriage. This is 12 years of marriage." So once again, I truly believe that you can mend most relationships. Obviously, if you're being abused and your spouse is dealing with a lot of addiction, that's a different animal. But I do believe even if you've been cheated on, you can find forgiveness and you can find it in your heart to move forward. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to who you are and working through that on yourself. You can't expect your husband to, or your spouse, whether it's male or female, husband or wife. It's really going to come down to you.
Yeah, and I think, the other part of this is, and it's beautiful that you're taking responsibility because I think that's where your power really lies. But it sounds like your husband also took responsibility. If he had come up with different answers to a lot of the questions or situations along the way, you might have ended up with a different result. If he said, "No, I'm not going to quit my job. No, I'm not going to stop seeing her. No, I'm not going to sign off on any interest in your business." If he hadn't been willing to own his part as well as you owning your part, the result that you got might be very different.
100%. He definitely took ownership and he was very sorry. And that's the thing too, is a lot of people are like, how are you going to trust him again? I was like, through time, you gain that trust back. And I truly believe in my husband, and my husband is a good man. My husband, and not that I want to make excuses, because someone's like, oh, you gave him a hall pass. I'm like, it's not a hall pass. I understand we're all human and we're going to make mistakes and we all have needs. And if those needs are not being fulfilled, we're going to find a way to fulfill them, whether that's with our current partner or with another partner. So I was able, like I said, to remember the great qualities that made me attracted to my husband. And really, that's what I focused on. I focused on the strengths and the pros, not so much the cons. And my husband, like through the journey, like I was triggered. So the individual's name of this young woman is the same name as my sister and my right hand at my company. And
Oh.
that was really hard. So I'd be like, you're Katie, you're my Katie, it'd be like, it was really challenging. And even like for years, like if there was a character in a movie that had that same name, I would be triggered. Or if they looked like her. So she is Asian descent. So if I saw an Asian person, I'd be like, ah, like we went on a cruise, an Alaskan cruise, and it's full. And I mean, everywhere I turned, it was like she was right in front of my face. And I felt like at that point, I was being challenged to overcome that. And so, once again, I always looked at like, what can I learn from this? How can I grow? And my husband always reminded me, let's focus on who we are today. I love you. You love me. Let's stay in the present moment and focus on the future. The past is the past. I can't do anything to change it. You can't either. Do you want to be living in today and moving forward full of love and connection? Or do you want to be living back there in hell with triggers? And so it's a lot of mind resets, and it takes a lot of power, and it takes a lot of discipline, and it takes a lot mentally, emotionally, and physically to move forward. And it's
Oh, yeah.
definitely not easy. I know I may be coming off like, oh, this is such a breeze. And It's not, but year after year, it becomes easier. And there was a time where I was like, February 8th, every year, I was like, the day of like discovering, like, and then like a couple years ago, like it was like February like 16th, and I was like, oh my God, that day passed, and I didn't make a big deal about it. Like, that's amazing. And
Yes.
so, and now I can say my sister's name because for 5 years I couldn't say my sister's name. I would only refer to her as my sister. Even if I was on the phone with my mom, I'd be like, how's my sister? Because I literally could not say my sister's name because I would be triggered. Now I can say my sister's name. Doesn't mean I always say my sister's name if I'm on the phone with my mom and he's in the room, because once again, I don't like to bring that name up because it is a trigger even after this point. But if he's not around, I will say the name because I never want to say the name where he's like thinking about her either.
Yeah.
So, and here we are 7 years later, and I'm still processing and I'm still going through this, and it will probably be for a very, very long time. Because this is part of our journey, this is part of our story and part of our past and part of our marriage. And I can't do anything to change it. It's just mindset shifts moving forward.
Yeah. Jenny, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story because I think it's so inspiring and it's good for people to know that number one, these things happen. Number two, you can get over them. But I think the real message is that you now have an amazing marriage. I mean, your second marriage to your same husband is absolutely beautiful. And I think if people take anything away from your story, it's that if you do these things and if you keep working on it, there is hope. Is it going to be in every situation? Of course not. There's always exceptions. Like you said, every marriage is different.
Mhm.
But if two people want to work on it, it's 100% possible to get to the place where you're at.
And I would say start doing the work before you get to that place because I do think a lot of this could have been prevented if we had the right tools, we would have focused on things. So I feel like if you're feeling that your relationship is struggling, start doing a deep dive now and having those really honest conversations before something major happens. But a lot of times that's you have to look in the mirror, look at yourself, and take a lot of ownership. And that can be kind of hard because it's easier to place the blame than to take ownership. So
100%.
yeah, it's been an
100%.
amazing journey. I'm very grateful for it. And I'll just share one more positive thing that this brought me to a place of having really great balance within the workplace and changed me as a leader and allowed my team to really step into where I basically worked myself out of a job within a year that I never thought was possible. So I now have so much time at home and hobbies, and I have a beautiful life now because I don't have to be in the business every single day, which prior to this I was. So there's so many benefits that came out of this, and it's unfortunate that all of it came because of it, but at the end of the day, it's part of the journey, and I'm really
Yeah.
grateful for it.
And that's an important message for people to hear too, because I work with a lot of strong, successful women. And you think that if you're not constantly nose to the grindstone, hitting it hard, that, you're not going to make it. And it's beautiful to hear that, no, you actually made it better and
Mhm.
let your team step up by stepping away, giving them the space and giving your marriage the time it needed as well.
100%.
So thank you again. Can you tell people who are listening if they want to hook up with you, if they want to find you, if they want your book, where can they find you? Where can they get your book?
Yeah, so the best way is to get my book. You can get that on Amazon, have it directly shipped to you. That'll lead you to my podcast, that'll lead you to my email, all my free resources. We do twice a year a course called To End or Mend a Relationship, and that's via Zoom as well. So, but all of that great information is located in my book. I'm on all the social platforms as well. So if you look up my name, I also have a music school too. So you may find that there's a music school with my name on it. So you can go ahead and follow that as well. But the book is the best resource out there that gives you all the tools that you need to overcome an obstacle and to take ownership of your life and to really enhance any relationship that you have.
Jenny, thank you again so much. I really appreciate your time and your sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for those of you who are out there watching or who are listening, if you enjoyed today's episode, if you'd like to hear more episodes just like this, do me a big favor, give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, and I look forward to talking with you again next time.